everyone. Welcome back to Your Fave Film Critic, the podcast hosted by me, your favorite film critic, Dom Griffin. We're 7 episodes in now. If I'm not your favorite and someone else is, you need to go listen to their podcast because, you're not loyal. I know we don't like no loyalty around here. If you guys noticed, this week I put up a new video on the channel about what a movie ticket should cost, about the relative value of going to the movies in 2023. And the video got a little bit off the rails from what I originally intended it to be. It ended up being very emotional for me, and I didn't really anticipate that. So if you watched the video and you thought it was kind of weird, you're not wrong. But probably more so than any episode of the pod so far, since the first episode, this episode is sort of like an extension of that video. Much the way the pilot was sort of me going into the Barbenheimer stuff after having done a video and reviewed it. This is very much expanded from the narrative of that video. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I do think you should check it out. It would be a good idea to have seen it. But you can watch it whenever. It's cool. You do you, man. But in that video, I mentioned that I took 3 days off of work to try to take a break and rest and recharge. It did not fucking work at all. The second I got back to work, everything went. Anyway, I took 3 days off, and I'm really bad at making plans with friends and things like that. So I just ended up watching movies the whole fucking time. So the what I watched this week section of the pod is going to be the main event this week, because I watched 10 movies and I'm going to talk about all of them. I'm going to go deep, so this episode might get a little long. As a result, my intention was to just completely skip the news part of the pod this week, because nothing had been going on in the news that I had any opinions about. And then in the last 48 hours, 3 pretty big things happened. 2 very big things happened, and then one thing that's not on the same level as the other 2 things, but also is worth talking about, I suppose. And the first is that some of this is going to be big wrestling stuff again. So if you follow the pod but you don't like wrestling and it's a weird thing that I'm into it to you, I apologize. But Terry Funk died 2 days ago. Terry Funk, one of the most legendary professional wrestlers to ever live. Even if you don't know him from his wrestling work, you may have seen him in the film Roadhouse. He was in 2 big Sly Stallone movies, Paradise Alley and Over the Top. Over the Top is the arm wrestling movie, if you don't remember. And he passed away. I mean, he lived in his late 70s. He had so many careers within his career. He started out, his he comes from the Funk family, this legendary Texas wrestling family. And, he spent years as NWA champion. He had maybe some of the best matches with Ric Flair ever. In the prime of Ric Flair's career, he was remarkable. And then he had this huge career in Japan too, one of the most popular gaijin wrestlers in Japan. And then in the 90s, he helped put ECW on the map. The man's he's a legend. Terry's a wrestler where me personally, I am not specifically a fan of Terry Funk. It's not I have a million favorite Terry Funk matches or grew up watching Terry Funk. We all grew up watching Terry Funk in some fashion, but in my opinion, his passing was really sad. Obviously, all death is sad, but it felt kind of, I don't know how to word this, not sound like a fucking asshole, but I don't want to say it felt just is not the right word, but it felt there was something peaceful to it, if that makes sense. Terry lived so long, he had so many health problems as a result of being a wrestler who did deathmatch wrestling and all the different things he did for 50 years, and he had tons of health scares, and he's the sort of guy that you wouldn't think was going to make it to this age even. God, I mean, we would have loved Terry to be around until he's 150 or something, but he had an exemplary career. He influenced so many people, he touched so many lives, and he passed in his old age, and which not a lot of wrestlers get to do that. There's so many horrible stories of wrestlers dying young or too young and stuff. So in a way, when they announced that Terry passed, it was that sucks. It's sad. But it feels okay, well, he had an amazing life. You know what I mean? You would hope whenever you die, if that happens, I don't know, whenever that happens, whenever that happens, that you leave behind a legacy like his, you know? But then a couple of hours ago, right before I was going to record this, Bray Wyatt, another wrestler, real name Wyndham Rotunda, passed away. And I was never like personally the biggest Bray Wyatt fan necessarily. Like, it's not like, again, like this is not like a wrestler that like, I don't know, like whenever Bret Hart dies, probably gonna do a lot of crying, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think a wrestler death has like really hit me since like Scott Hall passed. Like, that actually really fucked me up. Huge Scott Hall fan. But Bray was such a talented and like creative dude. And you know what he sort of lacked in like the ring sometimes, like he obviously had such a mind for the business. His father was the former Michael Wall Street, former Erwin R. Shyster in the 90s. You know, his father was a wrestler. His grandfather was Blackjack Mulligan. His uncle was Barry Windham. His younger brother, I think Bo's the younger brother. Bo Dallas is a wrestler. So a whole wrestling family, this whole dynasty, this legacy. And Bray just seemed like he had so many cool ideas for things. I personally was not like crazy about his wrestling stuff over the last few years personally, but I still thought he was going to end up like leaving wrestling and having like a cool secondary career, like, I don't know, writing horror movies or working on video games or some shit. Like, he clearly had more ideas and energy than like even the ring could quite contain, right? And he died. He died today. And kind of fucked me up just because like Bray and I are like the same age, and we're both like big stocky guys. I mean, like, I'm fatter than Bray Wyatt obviously, but like this man left behind like 4 kids, you know. He was a father, he had a family, and you know, technically essentially like in the prime of his career. Like, he had so much more to give creatively to the business, to people, the people that were touched by his work. And just dying that young is just so, I mean, it's just so fucked up, you know? Like, my plans for this episode were like largely joyous. Like, I've had like a pretty hard couple of weeks myself, but then like I felt some good stuff, and I wanted the episode to be like really positive. And then like just this news just kind of like, I was not about to fucking record a giant, like, you know, grinning podcast while I'm still sitting here thinking about this dude dying. Like, this guy was like my age. It just puts a lot in perspective, I think, for people, you know. Like, you start to think about like, in your head you think about life as being like, I'm just going to live for like, not forever. I don't think I'm going to live forever. I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting, I guess, if I became a vampire. But you don't think necessarily like, well, fuck, what if I died like tomorrow? You know what I mean? And like, even though Bray didn't leave behind the legacy that like a Terry Funk did, he's still leaving behind like a pretty palpable legacy. I don't know, just not to be like selfish about it or something, but it just made me think about like, what kind of legacy am I leaving behind? Like, what have I done? You know, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I mean, I still haven't like fully processed. Look, I didn't know the guy personally, obviously, and by all accounts, he was one of the guys in the business who people really liked. You know, who like was well liked, who was a good guy. I can't think of any stories about Bray being like a fucking brick or something. So, not that if he was, that it'd be okay that he was dead. I'm just saying, like, he had a reputation for being like a really cool, friendly, like, good cat. So it's fucked up. Sorry, this is fucked up. He's dead. It sucks. Every like, you know, like I got the text from a friend that was like, Justin texted me and he was like, dude, Bray Wyatt's dead. And I jumped into the A Show Discord just to see people's reactions, talking about it and stuff. And it's rough, man. It's a big loss to like the community of people that like this, the one true sport. So that's a huge bummer. I would, about in like 2013, 2014, when Bray Wyatt, he had this character, if you don't watch wrestling, Bray Wyatt had this character as being kind of like this like bayou shaman supernatural type vibe mixed with like, I don't know, like Lovecraft stuff. It was a lot of influences, you know, and it was very like, it was very cool at the time. And he had like a little stable of him and 2 other guys. One of the guys, Luke Harper, who passed away a couple of years ago under similarly like sudden circumstances. They had this feud with the Shield, which is WWE's like the biggest stable they've had in a very long time. Three guys who all went on to become big stars. Like Jon Moxley was a big star in AEW. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are big stars in WWE. And it was like the 6-man feud. These like three guys. And like they had nothing in common to be feuding. One was like a group of like guys that dressed like, like black bloc security guards or something. And then the other three guys looked like they came out of like a exploitation movie. But the matches they had were like insane. The feud they had was insane. I remember at the time it was a really good couple of matches to show to friends who haven't watched wrestling in a long time or maybe never got into wrestling. And like they would just immediately be sold because it's 6 guys and they'll have very drastically different personas that are like immediately evident in the ring, like the dynamics between the two different teams and stuff. Like anyone could just pick it up and watch it and like fall in love with pro wrestling. And I think there's a lot of great wrestlers, a lot of people that do great work, but not everybody can create something like that where like anybody would just look at it and be like, fuck, I want to go watch more of this. It's actually very hard to do. So I don't know if you see stuff online about Bray's passing and you're not a big wrestling person, you're curious at all, I would definitely check those matches out. Or really, if you're not into wrestling at all, he had this really great sort of what they call like a cinematic match at WrestleMania in 2020 with John Cena. It's basically just like if like David Lynch directed like a 15-minute wrestling match is the only way I can kind of describe it, but it's really cool. So like that's a cool part of his legacy to check out. But God, I just, praise for the families and stuff. I hope his kid, his kids, he's leaving a wife behind. It's rough. And then the other thing that I have to address for the news section, again, not on the level of the last two things I talked about, but they're moving Dune 2. Kind of wish that was the news I was updating this week. That would have been really nice if it was just like, hey, they're moving a movie. But Warner Brothers is moving Dune Part 2, whatever the fuck they're calling it, to March. Pulling it off of that November date, which is I think sucks. For the exhibition industry, I really hope other studios don't start following suit. The Academy or whatever the fuck went public with their counteroffer to the WGA, like some scummy fucks, and trying to brute force their way to the end of the strike, and it's not working. So if the strikes are not like wrapped up in the next like month or so, I feel like more shit like this might end up happening, which is a huge bummer. Not as much of a bummer as a grown man leaving behind 4 children dying. I just mentioned that it was just shitty that it's also happening. And I really wish that I just had to open the episode by saying they moved Dune 2 and moving on. But I just wanted to acknowledge those two losses because I've been thinking about them, obviously. So that's it for the news section. We're going to have a lot else to talk about on the pod today. So this might end up being a long episode. It might not actually. Once I get into it, maybe I'll go too fast or something. I don't know. But what I watched this week, like I said, I watched a bunch of fucking movies. Like these are essentially like rookie numbers for like the Dom of old who would hit like 400 or 500, 600 movies a year on Letterboxd. I don't think I've cracked 100 yet, or maybe maybe like 104 or something. Whatever. Again, rookie numbers, embarrassing for me. But I watched 10 movies, so I guess I'll just go like day by day. So Friday, I put last week's episode of the pod up, and then I didn't want to do anything. I had some other plans that did end up happening, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just watch movies. So my man Vice Victus on Twitter, if you guys don't follow Vice, you should. He's like a really, really smart, cool, funny guy. Great mind for film and stuff. I saw him tweeting about this Hulu exclusive movie called Miguel Wants to Fight. And I always kind of trust Vice's instincts on movies, just sight unseen. I'd never heard of this movie. I never saw a trailer, nothing. I just saw like a couple of screen grabs from the trailer that he tweeted, and that the title's called Miguel Wants to Fight. And it just seemed like there was like a screen grab of like Dasha Polanco saying something to this, like her student in class about beating somebody's ass. And he was just like, yeah. And I was like, I don't know what's going on, but it sounds like my kind of movie. And I threw it on, and it's like a 90-minute movie. Fucking love those. And I really dug it. I knew nothing about it going in. The only like two people in it that I recognized are like Dasha Palenko's in it. She plays like a substitute teacher. Raul Castillo plays the main character Miguel's father. And I could be wrong, but I think Miguel's mother is played by Eddie Griffin's girlfriend from the movie Double Take. I don't remember her name, but I was like, I think that's the lady from Double Take. If you've never seen Double Take, you should. I think it's really funny if I was getting the title of this movie wrong, but it's like Orlando Jones and Eddie Griffin. It's like a 90s Money Talks-esque comedy caper. Really fun movie. I made a video about it on the channel like 4 or 5 years ago, but anyway, yeah, those are the people who are in the movie. Sorry. Miguel Wants to Fight is about this group of teens who are all like pugilistically minded, I guess we'll say. They live like in a bad part of town and everybody fights. People get into fights at school all the time. So it's this tight-knit group. Miguel is one of the dudes. I don't remember all the other characters' names. I'm sorry. I watched 10 movies this week. I'm not going to remember everyone's fucking name. Miguel's sort of like the only, not like pacifist, but he's the only one in the group that doesn't fight, basically. He's obsessed with action movies and fight scenes in movies, and like they make TikToks together of like fake, like those like history fight things of like Abraham Lincoln fighting Goku or whatever, like that type of thing, I guess, like with like cosplayers and anime references and stuff. But then like one of his friends used to be a boxer. His father was a boxer. His father passed away. And then there's a girl in the group, like this young black girl who's a boxer. And then there's this other dude who's like young. I think he's an Indian guy. He kind of reminds me of like young Quentin Tarantino, which was a little bit weird. But they all are used to getting into these like fights because that's how life is. And they get into a fight and they discover that Miguel's never been in one. And that every fight they've ever had as a group where they thought he jumped in and was involved, he was always off to the side somehow. So Miguel finds out that his family is moving away to like a nicer neighborhood. He feels disconnected from his father. He thinks his father respects his best friend more because he can fight and he can't and stuff. So he keeps trying to get into fights. And the movie has kind of a little reductive to say, but like a little bit of like a Scott Pilgrim versus the World vibe, just in the sense of like the way it mixes action with like slice of life youth stuff. And like some of the editing is somewhat similar to like the way Edgar Wright handled that movie. But I thought it was very heartfelt. It was like a very sincere movie. And it was also funny, like earnestly funny. But all the stuff with the characters was all really good. It was like real believable. Like there's a lot of like modern references and things like that, but they all feel very natural. They don't feel too shoehorned in. I think the movie's co-written by Shea Serrano, who like I just know from like Twitter, but I think he writes for The Ringer, or used to write for The Ringer. Pretty funny guy, and like you could kind of sense his sensibilities kind of all over it, but a really cool little movie. Exactly the sort of thing I want to see on a streaming platform. Just this like random little neat movie with a lot of cool, it's like a really diverse cast, and like there's like sort of that feeling of like genuine representation. It doesn't feel like, oh, we made this such and such character black this time, but it was written by like a 55-year-old white woman or something. It's like actually, it feels authentic, and it's a really fun little movie. If you have Hulu, it's on Hulu, so I watched that. And then because I still was into the vibe of like I should watch something else that's actiony but not too actiony, I finally watched that movie Polite Society that I'd heard some good things about. I meant to see that when it was in theaters and just never did, but pretty sweet little movie. My biggest beef with Polite Society, I don't have as much to say about this movie, but I did watch it, is that Polite Society, like, it's like this story of these two sisters in England. And one of them wants to be like a stunt woman. She like is training in martial arts, and her older sister wants to be an artist, but she like is giving up on it because she's depressed. And their parents are trying to make her get like an arranged marriage. And she ends up dating and getting engaged to this perfect guy, but her sister thinks something's up with him and doesn't trust him and stuff. And like it's obvious that the sister's just like, doesn't want to lose her sister. Like that's the only other person who like gets her, and she doesn't want her to like go away and stuff and move to wherever the fuck they're supposed to move to in the movie. But then the movie, like, she spends the whole movie kind of like, like trying to prove this guy's bad. And then the movie's like, he's like a supervillain actually. And like it makes the movie work and stuff. But I remember thinking like, this girl has been acting crazy this whole movie. And then like in the last 20 minutes, it's like, oh yeah, no, but she's right. And I was really thinking like, this is really convenient. But it was, the stuff between the two sisters is really good. Like if you know any sisters, you have sisters, the dynamic is like really, really cool. And I think really like earnest. And I say the words earnest, heartfelt, sincere, and genuine a fucking lot. And I just don't know as many other words for those four things, but those are things that speak to me in things. So I'll figure that out at some point. It's going to look really embarrassing. I'm going to figure out the limits of my vocab, but no, Polite Society is cool. I would check it out. I don't have like a strong recommendation for it. I liked it, but I wasn't like, pretty good movie. But then I did another curious thing. I've been thinking about Equalizer 3 is coming out soon. But I didn't feel like rewatching the first two Equalizer films because as I remember them, they're so similar that like if I rewatch them, the third one's not going to seem as exciting because it's just so samey. But I still wanted to see Denzel Washington fuck people up. So I rewatched Man on Fire. And I have this weird relationship with Man on Fire where like, I remember the first time I saw it, I thought it was really cool. And then later I thought it was overrated. And then I watched it again. I thought it was cool. And like this time I'm like, I don't want to say it's overrated because that's not true, but it didn't hit for me the way it did before. Like I just forgot how much this movie is just like, I know it's based on a book and there's like another adaptation of it where I want to say Scott Glenn plays Creasy or something. I don't know who plays the little girl, but someone walked into a studio and was just like, let's tell a love story basically between a beat up alcoholic, military ops guy and Dakota Fanning. And it's not creepy. It's not, I don't mean like that, but I just mean like, that's essentially kind of what it is. Like it's like them, like, again, not like that, but like it's about their relationship and like about how she kind of brings him back to being more like a human again. And then, she gets like kidnapped and stuff. So like on the one hand, it's like the perfect justification for on-screen violence, right? It's like John Wick, it's like, dude, they killed his dog, they stole his car. All right, he's now allowed to kill 500 people. The viewers accept that he can kill 500 people now. You don't kill a dog. And I feel like implying that you murdered a little white girl in a movie is like, well, I guess now Denzel Washington's allowed to put grenades in people's asses now. It's just, that's how this works. So I don't know, this time watching it, it was the first time watching it where I was kind of like, this doesn't really do it for me the way it doesn't do it for me the way I remembered it doing it for me, which is sort of a pitfall, I guess, of like emotional movie watching. Sometimes you're just not feeling certain shit, you know what I mean? So like maybe I shouldn't have watched Man on Fire that night. Maybe I should have picked something closer to the Miguel Wants to Fight Polite Society, lo-fi slacker action milieu or whatever. But no, I watched Denzel Washington just like be steely-eyed and shit. I'm really looking forward to Equalizer 3 and I hope it's good. But maybe I should just rewatch those. Or maybe I should just rewatch like the Jack Reacher movies or something. That's really what I wanted to watch. I wanted to watch like just a dude walking around like fucking stuff up. I think the last time I tried to watch something like that was I watched like the first like 3 episodes of Amazon's Jack Reacher show, but I watched it on TikTok. Someone uploaded it in like a bunch of little clips. And I watched it like that. Like I could have just opened up Prime and watched the show for real, but I was just like, no, did they upload part 49 now? And like, that's how I watched it, like a fucking weirdo. So yeah, that was Friday. And then Saturday, I had very simple plans. I wanted to go see Oppenheimer for the second time. It is unknown. It is not on any IMAX screens in the area. And I'd already seen it in 70mm, so I didn't want to see it in 70mm again. So the biggest way I could see it in the DC area without I couldn't go to Chantilly to see like the real deal version because I don't have a car. And I could not afford to Uber to fucking Chantilly, but I went to the Alamo Draft House on Bryant Street in DC across from Metro Bar. This is my second time going. I went there a month and a half ago maybe to see They Clone Tyrone. It was my first time going to this Alamo. And there was another Alamo in Loudoun County, the Loudoun 1 Alamo. And when they first opened, I was just not a big fan of that theater. I've been there several times, but I've just never liked it. I actually really like the Bryant Street one. Like it's a little smaller. Maybe it's not that much smaller, but it feels cozier kind of. Every time I go, the staff is actually pretty chill. They're all pretty nice, which is pleasant to see when you go to a movie theater. And it's just a pretty cool place, I guess. They had this thing, Alamo, all the Alamos and all the newer Alamos that were built have this thing called the Big Show, and they have one screen that's like real big. And I guess technically in the DC area, it's the largest non-IMAX screen. It's like the biggest screen at a theater in DC. So I watched Oppenheimer there, and it was actually really, really good screen, really strong projection. The seats are comfy. This is going to be very silly, but almost all the good theaters now have switched over to having recliners, right? Recliners are like the thing at movie theaters. I have a theater that got renovated right before that became the standard. So we have like nicer leather seats, but they don't move. And every day someone calls me and they're like, do you guys have recliners? I'm like, no, we don't. I'm like, well, do they move a little bit? I'm like, no, motherfucker. Something is a recliner or it's not. It's not like the last theater I worked at had a similar seat situation where they were leather, they were nice seats, but they just don't recline. And I was at guest services one day and this guy came up. He was telling his friends, like, yeah, they got these really nice recliners here. And I was like, no, we don't. And he was like, yeah, you do. And I was like, no, you must have us confused in our theater. We don't have recliners at this theater. And he was like, last time I was here, I leaned back. It felt really great. And then I realized this guy was one of the many motherfuckers who would get in those seats that don't move back. And they would try to like thrust their backs backward, to like make them move back. And they don't end up damaging the seats. They would like end up plucking them kind of up out of the ground. So it's like, yeah, your seat reclines because you fucking broke it, dick. But anyway, at the Alamo Drafthouse on Bryant Street, they have recliners, and they're like nice recliners. They're actually very cozy. I have a bit of a problem when I go to certain movie theaters with recliners, which is that I'm a large man, and a lot of models of recliners have the thing where the control is inside the seat, like under the armrest. And I fidget a lot. I'm weird. And like my like fat, I have no hips. I'm not like, I have like zero hips necessarily. I'm very like straight down, but still there's a lot of me. We'll just bump into the thing. So I can't really use the recliner portion because I just like, like just kind of up and down, up and down, up and down because I'm bumping into the fucking controls. The Alamo's recliners are like wide enough to where that doesn't happen. I can actually just recline, and like they recline. Like they go like all the way. Like I was 3 hours of Oppie. I was like fucking floating, dude. It was really nice. I don't even have anything to share about having seen Oppenheimer a second time because all I kept thinking about was like, this is so fucking comfy, and once again, just made the movie not feel like 3 hours. It just like kind of breezed by. So thank you, Christopher Nolan, and whoever the fuck designed the seats at the Alamo Drafthouse on Bryant Street. Really appreciate that comfortable experience. But before I watched Oppenheimer, I was like, well, I want to, I kind of wanted to like be watching movies all the time. So I got there early enough to catch an open caption show of Landscape with Invisible Hand, this new indie movie. I think A24 put this out, or Neon, one of the two. No, I'm so wrong. I think it's actually Annapurna Pictures, which like used to be on par with A24 and Neon, and now they're just like not. They had a lot of duds, but I think that's what I should have written this down in my notes, guys. I'm sorry, but pretty solid movie. Very strange, cool concept, pretty good performances, especially from Josh Hamilton. From Noah Baumbach's first film, Kicking and Screaming. He was the main character in Kicking and Screaming. He also is the dad in Bo Burnham's 8th Grade. He's having himself like a little bit of a like renaissance now. He was in Reality, the movie that came out. I don't know if it's like a Max exclusive with Sydney Sweeney. About Reality, was her name Reality Winner? The lady that got like the NSA shit that happened or whatever. Anyway, he was in that. And he's in this, and he's really good. And Tiffany Haddish is really good in this too, actually. I know there's a lot of like stuff that's happened to her in the media where people don't talk about her as much, but like as an actress, I was actually pretty impressed by this performance. It's about like a future where aliens have come and like occupied Earth, and the thing about the movie is that it has this like, sort of metaphor for like this is like what's happening with late stage capitalism, but like with aliens. And I remember just thinking like it doesn't feel dystopian enough, if that makes sense. Like, I know people have joked about how much harder it is to make science fiction these days because it's like, you know, like the people behind Black Mirror, it's like, are you guys going to come up with anything that's fucking harder than what's really happening to us, you know? And Landscape with Invisible Hand is interesting and has some cool ideas and pretty decent execution. But there were times where I was just like, yeah, this is like essentially, this isn't like enough of a Fable deal. Like, this just feels like, minus the aliens, legitimately what life is like now. So, I don't know. It was interesting. It was cool. There's this whole thing. One thing about the movie, I'll say, like, I originally went to see it before Oppie because I thought about making a video about it. But then having seen it, I was like, I don't really have enough thoughts for a whole video. And I'm trying to avoid making quote unquote content about things that I don't have strong feelings about one way or the other. Because I feel like I'm wasting my time and yours by watching it. I don't think anyone wants to watch a video from me. It's just kind of like, yeah, that was okay, I guess. You know, like I try to make sure like I have something to say. And if I don't, like, I'll do something else. You know, time is precious. But there's this, a huge chunk of the movie is about the fact that this, the main character, I remember his name, is a young black kid, and he has a younger sister, and he's an artist, and his dad moved out west to make money and then just disappeared on them. And his mom didn't actually, they own a house, but they don't make any money. Like, they're like poor, but they own this house. And he meets this girl like the first day of school, who's like this little white girl they just moved to her family, and they don't have a place to live. They're living in a car. So he invites them over for dinner and then convinces his mom to let them move into the basement. So you have this like little white family of the guy from 8th grade and the girl and her dipshit older brother living in the basement from this black family. But in their eyes, the black family is like rich people. And they consider them like landlords because they're making them pay rent to stay in the basement. And so you get all this weird stuff where it's like the white family talking to them is like, you don't know what we've been through, like da-da-da-da-da. And like at first I thought that it was like going to be funnier, like they were going to mine more comedy from it because it's sort of like, oh, like this is not what you think it is. But at times I was like, does the filmmaker realize that like in their imaginary timeline where aliens took over, not much time has passed from what would be considered our present. So the idea is like aliens came, and then within like 2 years, white people, and these are like sort of like Libby kind of like middle class white people, now feel like the blacks are like actually the enemy or something. I don't know. Some of the racial commentary, I suppose, in the movie was a little bit strange to me. Particularly because like the real thrust of the movie is that the young boy and the girl kind of start to fall for each other. And then she has the idea that they should do like a courtship broadcast, which is basically like they live stream their relationship to aliens because aliens like romance, apparently, because they don't experience it, and they make money off of it depending on how many aliens are watching. And then the aliens sue them because they say it's fake because she's like pretending to be in love with him. And I felt like, I'm glad that the movie is not all about that. It moves away from that very smartly, thank God. But the trailer makes it seem like that's the whole movie. And as you're experiencing that part of the movie, the love interest girl character is like so, like, I don't want to say annoying, but I feel like she's presented as being like really sympathetic, and she sort of is. But the way she's played and like the way she's written makes her seem like, no, I feel like this person's like actually kind of like villain adjacent. Like the things she does and like what comes from her decisions are like really bad for these characters, but it's not treated that way. It's kind of treated like, you know, it's not a big deal kind of. And I am not normally one of those people who's like, you know, if a movie doesn't go out of its way to tell, you know, me that this is morally incorrect or something, how am I supposed to know that it's not endorsing it? I'm not one of those people. But throughout much of the movie, I was like so annoyed with her. I was just so much like, why is it? We're not going to reconcile this. Like I was just really irritated. And that kind of took away from my enjoyment of other parts of the story. But I was just like, what the fuck is like this deal, you know? And it's, I don't know. Maybe I'll feel it differently if I see it again. But it's very unlikely I want to watch this movie again anytime soon. But who knows? But that's Landscape with Invisible Hand. I would give this about the same level of recommendation as I would like Polite Society. Like, I think it's a good movie. I think people will like it, but I'm not going to tell you to like, you know, fight down the doors or something. A movie I am going to tell you that you need to make an immediate part of your cinematic diet is, so after I did Oppie, I was originally going to spend some time with the best friend Cody. Love you, Cody, if you're listening. And but like it just, our plans like just kind of fell through. It was like a sort of like a no bones day for both of us. And so I came home and I was like, I need more movies. And I was talking to the homie Kyle Bragg about, there's a movie he was telling me I should watch, and I'm going to watch it, but I didn't want to watch it this week because I've already watched so many other things that I was like, I'll save that for next week because I feel like this is going to take up a good chunk of the pod too. So there's an exciting movie I've never seen that I'm supposed to see that will be in the next episode, I think. But as we had that conversation, he mentioned something about Albert Pyun, the filmmaker, the guy that directed Cyborg, the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, and also the Captain America movie from the 90s. And I'm not like a huge fan of his in the sense that like I haven't seen all of his movies, but like when he passed recently, I saw tons of people logging a bunch of his movies on Letterboxd, and they all looked fucking awesome. And the one that had the coolest poster was this movie Nemesis, and it happened to be streaming. I think it was streaming on Peacock, maybe. I think I watched it on Peacock. And the best things on Peacock right now, like the WWE Network and Albert Pyun's Nemesis, I threw that shit on, and buddy, if you guys follow me on Letterboxd or your Letterboxd people, you'll know that I almost never star rate movies. When I watch stuff, I don't do star ratings. Sometimes I give reviews, sometimes I give longer ones, sometimes I do the typical pithy joke review thing, but a lot of times I just log stuff. To me, Letterboxd is just about remembering what I watched and when. I've been using it since the beginning of 2015, and it's like a very important tool for me. But I don't do the star thing. Because I change my mind too much. I'm very picky. I hate giving things numerical ratings and star ratings and stuff and letter grades and shit. However, I have a bit of a gimmick. I have a gimmick that I do, which is that sometimes if I'm moved profoundly enough by a certain kind of movie, I will give it 5 stars. And if you go to my Letterboxd, I guess I'll try to link it or something in the show notes so it's easier to find. But basically, I only give 5-star ratings out to like very specific, astronomically good things, or like ridiculous things that are like so unique that like I have to mark them somehow. And then I only give out 0.5-star or 1-star ratings to things that I hate so much that like I'll go to someone's house and be like, did you direct this movie? And then fight them, like movies like that. So like, for instance, for a while, the only 2 5-star rated things I had on Letterboxd were Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth and Beyonce's Lemonade. Those are the only 2 things I had 5 stars for a while. But I've added a couple of like genuine 5 stars. Like I gave Miami Vice, I think 5 stars finally on like my 7th rewatch or whatever. I gave Albert Pyun's Nemesis 5 stars off break. It is like this really cool, like 90s martial arts, cyberpunk movie thing that is so unique, and it's just like dripping with ideas. There's so many ideas on display. The guy playing the main character is like a part cyborg detective who undergoes no less than like 6 or 7 haircuts throughout the movie's like 100-minute runtime. And he is, I think I saw someone on a review call him like a broke dick Jean-Claude Van Damme, and like it's not wrong. Not the best actor, but there's a lot of like character there, kind of like Tommy Wiseau adjacent, but like better and not weird. I have to spend next weekend with Tommy Wiseau. That's another story for later. But the guy's really good. Like he's like really, the martial arts stuff is cool. He's like incredibly like shredded in like a very scary, sinewy 90s image art type of way. Like he looks sort of like Rob Liefeld drew him for like a swimsuit issue or something. But he's a cyborg detective. There's like a war going on in LA between like cyborgs and humans, and it doesn't really make it clear who's supposed to be the bad guy. It's essentially like Blade Runner if Blade Runner was a Skinemax movie. If that makes sense. All the things I'm saying about this movie make it sound like it's not a good movie and you shouldn't watch it, but I'm telling you, it's a really good movie and you have to watch it. The plot doesn't always make the most sense, but there's so much of it. Like, there's just so much story and twists and stuff. Like, it really, all I can say is, like, if you look up the poster for the movie, the poster is really rad. The font, everything. It's a really cool poster. The movie feels like that poster, basically. I have like a thing that I really like in movies, a very specific type of thing that I can only attribute to a handful of filmmakers. But sometimes you watch a movie and you feel like the person is inventing movies for the first time. Like, if movies didn't exist, this person could just come up with the idea and this is what they would come up with, if that makes sense. I know this is a very strange way to say this, but like, I want to say it's a Godard quote, maybe. And I think he said this about Nicholas Ray. I think he said, like, Nicholas Ray's films, like, that within him, there's like the passion, the creativity to, like, if cinema were to no longer exist, that he would invent it. He would create it or something. Like, if there was no God, he would be God or whatever. I'm butchering the fuck out of this quote. You got to look it up. I've quoted it elsewhere. It's like one of my favorite quotes, and somehow I can't remember it right now. But I feel that way about Albert Pyun. And like, I when I talked to Kyle about this, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen any of Albert Pyun's movies. And he was like, he did the really bad Captain America. And I was like, I loved that Captain America when I was a kid, because I was a kid and I didn't know any better. So I thought that was the only movie of his I'd seen. But then I realized he did Cyborg, the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. And a couple of years ago, I did a watch project where I watched I never finished it, where I watched every Jean-Claude Van Damme movie and every Steven Seagal movie, but like in order of when they came out. So I could kind of like monitor these twin dragons kind of actions career and stuff. And I gotta finish it at some point. It was a really fun project. I was really having a blast with it. But I remember watching Cyborg, and in my review, I think I referenced that quote on Letterboxd. Is like, there's moments in this that feel like primordial cinema. Like, there's a part in Cyborg where Jean-Claude Van Damme is like doing the splits up above this like thing, and he's about to like drop and fight a guy, and the way it's framed and shot and edited is so fucking cool. It's so cool. And like, you can't fake that. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, there's something like primal there. And a lot of that is in Cyborg. Not in Cyborg, in Nemesis. I don't think I've felt this kind of like crackling raw movie energy since I was like a teenager and I saw Ryuhei Kitamura's Versus. Like, that kind of energy where you're like, this movie just feels like the camera is a guy on a stick with guns running around with a sword. You know, like, people tell me I'm eloquent, but I don't know how to fucking express this. It's just, it's really fucking cool. And I hope that at least you can hear my voice, that like, I was not in a great mood after I left Oppie and stuff. Like, I don't remember like how my day went, but I started feeling kind of like bummed out about a lot of life stuff. And I threw on Nemesis, and I don't remember anything about any of that shit. And I was like, what? No, I want to find out what's going on with the Cyborg War. I want to find, like, the fucking end of the movie, like Jackie Earle Haley shows up as like a hacker guy or something. Thomas Jane's in it. You see his ass. He gets killed really badly. One of the guys' names in the movie is like Thomas Thomerson. I want to say, I could be wrong about that, but he has a really weird fucking name. There are so many. Like, if this was a less packed week for me, I probably could have made this entire episode just about Nemesis, because there's just so much stuff in it. It is just chock full of shit. And I fucking loved it. I love Nemesis. I don't want to, we have other stuff to talk about, so I kind of got to move on. But like, if you, please watch this movie. Please watch this movie, and then comment on the YouTube version or whatever, or if you have my number, text me or whatever. I don't know. Hit me up and tell me what you thought about Nemesis if you've seen this movie. It is so good. And the thing is, I know probably people have already seen this. Like, I'm probably very late to this party, but man, I'm so fucking glad I watched it. It felt so good to hit the little thing with the 5th star. I was like, this is the most true thing I will do this week. So then the next day, I went to, okay, so on the video this week, on the new video, I talked about AMC Stubs A-List. I talked about the subscription model for the theatrical business and stuff. And in the video, I mentioned how almost exactly a month ago now, I got right into the wire. I had planned to do the Barbenheimer double feature after I told everybody not to do it. I was going to do it myself to make a video, like joking about it or something. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I ended up not doing that. One of my good friends was in town. We went and hung out with him instead. But when I planned to do it, and I was buying the tickets for it, the app was like, you may as well get AMC A-list, and then these 2 movies will be free, and you get a free one later, or whatever the fuck, how they pitched it to you. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever, fuck. And I did that. But then I ended up not going. So like I just deleted that or whatever. And I forgot that, hey, I paid for a month of AMC A-list stubs. It's like $24.99 or something. And I remembered, hey, I've not seen a single fucking free movie on this thing. You get 3 free ones a week, and the month is almost up. And I wanted to do something with my Sunday that would not cost me money. Not a great week for your boy. So I was like, what can I do for essentially free? And I was like, well, technically I already paid for this shit, so let's go do this. So I went to the AMC at Wheaton Mall in Maryland. If you guys live from around, I don't know how many like local listeners I have, really. Probably not very many, but if you do, maybe you know. I've never seen a movie at AMC Wheaton before. It's the only AMC in the area I've never been to. And now I know why. The AMC Wheaton is like kind of a dog shit theater. It kind of really strongly reminds me of University Mall in Fairfax, Virginia. If you've never been there before, I've had a lot of really great viewing experiences at that theater. But that's like a second run. Like they have stale popcorn and old candy, and tickets are like, I don't know, if you have a special handshake with the guy, you can get in or something. And there's always like random like lumber at the front of the auditorium because like they're doing like a construction project that never gets finished. But this is not a second run theater. This is a first run real AMC. It's like a real theater. I don't know how many screens they have. I want to say like 10 or 12 maybe. And maybe 10. I don't think it was 12. Whatever. But it's like a fair number of screens, I guess. And I plotted out my 3 free movies to go all in one day. I was like, I'm going to do it like doop, boom. And when I got there, I was like, oh my God, it's like a very like kind of cramped, kind of flat feeling theater. I will say the staff were all very nice. Some of them were like demonstrably not good at their jobs, but they were like friendly at least. Nobody was mean. The one thing I will say also, sorry, about the AMC stub shit is like I've never done it before. And every time you do anything stubs related, you have to show them your ID so they know you're not like sharing it with someone. But I was there all day. So like 3 times they wanted to see my ID, and like every time it felt very weird. Like I don't get carded for anything. I'm obviously like a man who's over the age of whatever thing. Like I'm old enough for all of it. Literally all of it. So fucking old. So that was it was weird getting carded, I guess. I mean, like, it's not carded. You're not getting carded. You don't have to be a certain age to have A-list, but it was just weird. Anyway, I saw 3 movies in a row. In the morning, I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. And I want to say that I got into the theater. Here's the thing that kind of fucked me up about the Wheaton AMC. On the seat maps, the theaters looked small. So like I picked seats that were further back. And then when I got in the auditorium, like I used to work at a theater in downtown DC where their auditoriums are all very small. They're like roughly 40 to 50 seats, but it's like wide. It's like 14 rows wide and then like 5 rows. And then like it's kind of like a rectangle shaped auditorium. At the Wheaton, their smaller auditoriums are the same thing, but they're like reversed. It's like 7 rows that are like 8 deep. And the screens is very far. So it feels like you're in like a box, sort of like a shoe box, and someone has a movie screen on the other end of it. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. Because it made the screen so fucking little. But when I sat down, I was like dead center in the middle. And then there was a small family that sat directly next to me, and another small family that sat directly behind me. And even though they were the only ones in the theater, I could have just got up and gone and sit in the front row, which I wanted to do. But I didn't want it to look like I was trying to get away from them. I didn't want to look a jerk, because everyone that was there had kids, and I was by myself to watch a Ninja Turtles movie, so I didn't want to be like weird. So I just sat there. I just dealt with it. And the whole trailers, they played so many god awful fucking trailers for these kids movies. It's like this bird movie, Migration, fucking Aquafina's in. Like that Trolls movie should just be in The Hague. And then the Paw Patrol movie, there's a Paw Patrol movie where the Paw Patrol gets superpowers. I was like, enough is enough. You can't make a Paw Patrol movie that gives them superpowers. They can't just like solve a mystery, whatever. Never seen Paw Patrol, but I watched all these kids movies, and I was listening to these kids like get fucking ballistic for every new shiny color glitter thing they saw. And I was like, these kids are about to fuck this up for me. And then they did not. They were extremely well behaved. There was a couple little moments of like, the two brothers kind of near me, maybe fighting over the popcorn a little bit, but otherwise the kids like really were behaved. They liked the movie. They popped for a lot of stuff. And I felt two things. I felt like a fucking asshole that I was just like, oh, these fucking kids are going to ruin it. Like, they didn't. And also, it's for them. It's for them. I'm here just because I'm, nostalgia. But like, I felt terrible that I was about to like mentally claim this for myself and that they were going to ruin it for me. Like, maybe I'm going to ruin it for them, and I didn't. It was a good time. The movie's really fun. Really cool changes to the mythology. They really make the turtles like actually feel like teens for the first time ever. The voice actors are really good. A lot of really fun little guest parts and stuff. I think Ayo Edebiri from The Bear is a really good April O'Neil. And like her dynamic with the turtles is so fun and funny and entertaining. Jackie Chan's Splinter was really funny. One of the fights that Splinter gets into is like animated and structured kind of like a Jackie Chan fight. Like he doesn't get to say, I don't want no trouble, nothing, but like it's very close to the structure of the way he works. And I thought that was very cool. Everyone is comparing it to Spider-Verse because it has like a, a strange animation style, but like it felt a little bit looser, like a little bit more fun and lively and not so. I love the Spider-Verse movies, but like I'm at this many months removed from the second one. I'm very sick of people just like isolating something and being like, isn't this a crazy, amazing detail? And like, it's really good that you can dig in that deep with it. But I like that Turtles was like, I didn't think that hard about the animation. I didn't think that hard about, I didn't feel like I had to go look at a Twitter thread from one of the storyboard artists to explain how they came to whatever. Like I was actually vested in the story and the characters. So I kind of liked that. I liked that it wasn't, the other thing. So I really dug it. I will say the movie opened with an introduction from Seth Rogen, which I thought was fucking weird. Because I'm like, how many 11-year-olds know who Seth Rogen is? Like, what? And I will say the biggest thing that was weird to me about the movie is that, usually when we watch kids movies, it's a bunch of shit for the kids. Like a bunch of shiny, funny, bloop, 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 bloop type shit. But then for the parents, there's a bunch of like boomer humor, right? And I realized that all of the parent humor in Mutant Mayhem is for like millennials. It's for like people my age. Like people my age have kids. People my age have kids that they take to the movies. And I guess I hadn't thought about that in a while. So every time something happened where me and the dad, and it was a dad next to me and a mom behind me. It was like two single parent families or whatever. Every time the three of us laughed at something the kids didn't, I was like, oh, fuck. This doesn't feel right. Because I remember thinking like they shot, like there's a lot of like kiddie, like TikTok reference humor and Fortnite stuff, whatever. But then there's a bunch of stuff that's like every needle drop is just clearly stuff that Seth Rogen listens to when he smokes weed. Like Annie Up is in this movie. You know what I mean? Like there's just like there's an entire montage set to like No Diggity by Blackstreet. Like this is not for the kids. It's for the elder millennials. And that kind of fucked me up and made me feel carbon dated and it was just weird. But really fun movie. If you have not seen it yet, if it's still in your theaters, it kind of is flaming out box office wise. Check it out. Really fun. Whenever it hits VOD or whatever, watch it then too. It's a really, 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 I really recommend it very strongly. I had a blast. But then after that, I watched Jesus. Not gonna edit that out. We got to keep it real. I watched Talk to Me, the new A24 horror movie, and I really like this as well, actually. Two things going in. I did not know, one, that it was an Australian movie. Didn't know it was an Aussie thing. And two, I didn't know that it was directed by two YouTubers. Because I saw they were getting interviewed by Logan Paul, and somebody was like, why are the Talk to Me directors being interviewed by Logan Paul? And I was like, because that's their ilk. It's like they're probably boys from way back on the tube. But I thought it was really good. It definitely feels like the kind of movie that people might end up like severely overrating, as happens a lot of like A24 produced horror. But no, I thought it was like really, really good. I'll say this: I had to watch the trailer for The Exorcist, the David Gordon Green Exorcist movie that's coming out. I had to watch that trailer like twice in my travels, and it just is doing nothing for me. I think I told my friend Justin, I was like, this movie feels like when James Cameron went into the studio with Alien and added like an S and then a $sign. I don't know I can't remember if that story's real or not, but that joke about how he pitched Aliens. Like I feel like David Gordon Green did that with The Exorcist, but it was just like, imagine if there was two girls possessed in tandem, like multi-track drifting. And I was like, this is not this is not it. I mean, I'll watch it. Maybe it'll be good, but I had like no interest in it. And then I watched Talk to Me, which does exorcism style shit in it very well. And I was like, see, you guys are like, they're making this unnecessary now. Like there's no, like, I feel like David Gordon Green's going to watch this movie and be like, fuck, I'm ruined. But no, it's a good movie. Another movie where like a character, another movie where there's a character making kind of unsound decisions and like, well, basically, if you have 17, Talk to Me. It's a group of like teens get together and like there's this like embalmed hand. It's like, it looks like a statue, but there's like a real dead hand inside of it allegedly. And if you hold it and you light a candle and you say, talk to me, like you're opening a portal to the dead, and you'll just see someone dead in front of you. And then if you say, I let you in, they'll possess you for like, you can only do it for like 90 seconds or something. And then you have to break it. Otherwise the dead will stay here. So of course someone does that. But, the movie really takes its time getting to the bit, and the rising action to it is very, very strong. And when they finally show it, I remember thinking like, this is actually fucking good. Like I didn't know they could pull this off, but it really works. And they invest you in the characters, and like the main character's like mother died, and she has to come to terms with the fact that her mother killed herself. And she's like really tight with her best friend's family and like loves them like they're her family, but there's also like tension between them, and all the family dynamic stuff and all of that character work is very good. I thought they layered the story really nicely. But like her best friend comes off like such an asshole throughout the story. And then there's multiple moments where like she's just kind of being a prick, but because her decisions don't directly lead to anything bad happening, she doesn't seem like the bad person in the movie. And I'm just thinking like, again, like maybe this is just a bad thing that I'm having where I'm watching movies lately and I'm just like, there's people in here who are not getting their just desserts. Maybe I just have to only watch like key jangling superhero movies where the good guy wins in the end or something. But I just remember feeling kind of like, I don't know. I don't like this. I feel like this girl kind of sucks. But I thought it was a really good movie. The ending was, I thought, really, really well done, really well executed. Good endings are very important. And then I'm not going to talk too much about this because we're getting long in the tooth in this episode. But then after that, after Talk to Me, which I strongly recommend, definitely go see Talk to Me if you can, if it's still playing near you. I watched The Last Voyage. The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I almost called it The Voyage of the Last Demeter. The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Again, going in, haven't seen the trailer for this movie. I just knew that it's about Dracula on a boat. And for whatever reason, because I never saw the trailer, I assumed it was like a modern day version of Dracula. So when it opened and they were on that like old time, I was like, oh fuck, this is like actually like the original Bram Stoker's Dracula shit. It's essentially just like a cut scene or whatever from I've never read the actual book, but it's about Dracula being transported from Romania to England, and then he like kills everybody on board. And like the big thing the movie just decides to do is it's like a monster movie, and Dracula is basically this like tall golem. He's this like tall Nosferatu golem. And he's like picking people apart one by one. And not a great movie. Like we can be honest about that. But the kills are pretty good. The suspense is pretty good. All the acting's not bad. It was like a nice little movie. It was like exactly what subscription model theater things are for. Is like, hey, if I get 3 free movies a week, they don't put out 12 good movies every month. And if I wanted to take advantage of this, I'd end up watching stuff that I wouldn't take a chance on otherwise. I would never pay to see The Last Voyage of the Demeter, I don't think. But I mean, I guess I technically paid, but you know what I'm saying? Like I got to watch 3 movies that day. Like my third movie could have been anything. It was gonna be that, or I almost picked Sound of Freedom out of curiosity, but no. I like Dracula, so we watched the Dracula boat movie. And by we, I mean me. I was alone. Me and my thoughts. It was good. I really, I can't say I recommend that one. I can't lie to you guys like that. But if you, whenever it hits TV, not even VOD, not even streaming, whenever it hits like television, when it comes on like right before like a Lakers game or something on TNT, maybe then you should watch The Last Voyage of the Demeter. You'll have a good time. It's good. It's definitely got TNT new classic energy, I'll say. So, but it was, I'll say that this was a really good experience. Like when all was said and done, it was a good way to have spent my weekend. I talk a lot in the video this week about the importance of the theatrical experience and how good it is. And like, had a lot of stuff I've just been kind of wrestling with lately and not being in the best headspace. And like, I felt, like, how do I describe this? I felt like safe. Does that sound weird to say? I felt safe at the theater, even though I was at the Wheaton with the shitty, ugly red recliners that make noise and kind of mediocre everything else. But it was, I felt good. I felt safe. I feel good in a dark room with a big picture talking at me. I feel sometimes it's like where I feel the most safe, where I feel the best. And I'm going to try to make a more concerted effort to stick with it, to like go to the movies more often. Like I said, I've not been going to the movies outside of press screenings as much because I typically only go to see them for free at the theaters that I work for. And I don't like doing that anymore because it feels like I'm still at work. I don't feel safe in that sense. I don't feel like the comfort you feel, the escape you feel. I know the buildings too well to escape in them. It's like watching a movie at home now. So I need that, more of that. And I'm excited to figure out how to fit more of it into my life. So yeah, that's the what I watched section. I know we were going to go a little long, but we still have time for some questions. We love questions. This is the Q&A section now. Why did I say that? Like now we're doing this. I don't know. First question is from Iris. What's your power ranking for surprise Matt Damon features off the top of your head? All right, off the top of the dome. Number 1 is Interstellar, because I remember when I saw Interstellar for the first time in IMAX, when Matt Damon popped up in the middle of that fucking movie with no warning, it's the funniest thing. The more you watch Interstellar, that scene's not as funny, but the first time I watched it, it was the funniest thing. And everything he says and does in that movie is really funny to me. Like just everything about his entire deal. Just like no one's ever been tested like I've been tested. Like that whole character is fucking insane. It's such a good bit. That's easily number 1. And then probably fighting for second would be when he pops up near the end of No Sudden Move, the Soderbergh movie. I remember thinking like Matt Damon popping up at the end to basically just play like Vince McMahon for a few minutes was really good. And then I really liked when he popped up in another Soderbergh joint. Not Contagion. Fuck. The other one he shot on an iPhone where the girl's getting like stalked. I can't believe I don't remember the name right now, but that's embarrassing. It's like my favorite director. But anyway, that movie, the one he did right before, or right after Logan Lucky. Fuck, my memory, not a good brain week for me. Anyway, that movie, he pops up as like a detective, I think, or something. That was a nice little pleasant surprise seeing Matt Damon in a movie shot on an iPhone. And then I guess Eurotrip. I guess Eurotrip is this guy doesn't know. It's pretty funny. I don't know if you can call Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back surprise Damon because he was in the trailer, but how do you like them apples, applesauce, bitch? That whole thing is really great too. Iris has a follow-up question, sort of. She's asking if I've seen Blast from the Past, the Brendan Fraser movie. Yeah, I've totally seen it. I've not watched it recently. She's asking basically if I think that the movie holds up or whether or not it's like problematic and weird. And I remember thinking it was like kind of charming and quaint. I feel like it probably still is. I haven't rewatched it. I might do that soon, but I don't think that's a movie that makes you uncomfortable. But Brendan's great in it. And Walken's really great too. Christopher Walken's really good in that. Next question. Thanks, Iris. Channel Not Found asks, what books on film theory would you recommend? Okay, so I don't really write answers down or write the questions down for this, but this one I actually wrote notes so I wouldn't forget things. Unlike the rest of this fucking episode, I guess. I picked 5 books and 1 bonus. Okay, so one of the first and most important books I ever got about filmmaking was the book Film Directing Shot by Shot, which was gifted to me by my high school drama teacher, Jeff Mueller. Really good guy. One of the better teachers I've ever had in life. Really nurtured me a lot. Like he knew that I wasn't doing drama because I wanted to be an actor. He knew I wanted to write and I wanted to direct. And he came to me one day near the end of the school year and he was like, I used to really want to make films myself. And like, I got a kid now. I'm a teacher. I'm never going to make a movie probably. And he gifted me this book. He's like, I bought this book when I wanted to do it and now I don't want to do it anymore. So I think it would serve you better. And it's like a textbook. It's like, of all the different books, and I've read a lot of books about filmmaking, it's the one that the most feels like, if I didn't go to film school obviously, but if you went to a class, this would be the book that you would read from, if that makes sense. Really good book. Mueller was such a cool guy, man. We really got along a lot of things, and he always treated me kind of like a peer. He didn't treat me like a kid. I got to be like, like his stage manager on a couple of productions and stuff. And before he ended up moving school districts between my sophomore and junior year, he had told me he really wanted to like co-direct a production with me. That he really wanted to get me more involved, and it never happened. But I remember thinking, as a kid, that was like such a cool, what's the word I'm looking for? Like cosign, kind of. Like I wanted to write, and I wrote stuff, and I let him read a play I wrote that wasn't very good, and he was always very encouraging. And that's like so important in a teacher. And I don't know why I'm going on a tangent about that, but he was a good guy, and I hope wherever he is, I hope he's doing well. The other one is a book I bought a little bit later. It's called Cinematic Storytelling. I don't know who wrote it or whatever, who put it together, but it's this like wide ass book. It's like a 2.35 to 1 book basically. And it has like 100 or so like various like cinematic techniques and then examples from specific movies with big blown up stills and stuff. And that was really cool to me. It was that book for me was essentially like every frame of painting, but in book form before that channel ever existed. You know what I mean? Like that showed me a lot of visual stuff that I wasn't interested in about movies. Because I grew up very much, because I came from it as a writer. I came from it much more about character and plot and stuff like that. That really opened my eyes to like visual storytelling and mood and tone and all that type of stuff. So that was really important for me. From more of a construction perspective, Alexander McKendrick, the guy that directed The Lady Killers and The Sweet Smell of Success, is a book called On Filmmaking. I've given this as a gift to aspiring filmmaker friends of mine on multiple occasions. It's a perfect book. It's so rich in detail. There's a whole middle section about the way they rewrote Sweet Smell of Success and like specifically how they made it better from the original version of the script that they had. Indispensable resource. If you're very serious about film, like, I realize I'm listing stuff about how to make movies versus like stuff that's just broadly about theory, but I always came from it from more of like a how-to perspective. So that's a really great book. Another one is Sidney Lumet's Making Movies. Lumet is so cool. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. And I read that book very young, and it was really formative for me. Another one that's really formative, even though this is less film theory, but I've been putting it on here, is William Goldman's second memoir, Which Lie Did I Tell? And it basically tells his life story in Hollywood from like after Misery, I would say, up till like whenever the book came out, like the early 2000s. So there's a lot of really great stuff about him working on the movie The Ghost in the Darkness. There's stuff about him working on Absolute Power with a young Tony Gilroy. Really good book about screenwriting in general, but he talks about the film industry and story theory and stuff too. It's a really, really great book. It's really funny too. It's really great. R.I.P. Billy Goldman, the man who made the maxim "nobody knows anything" in Hollywood. He was right. And then a bonus book is David Mamet's On Directing Film, which is like a small book. I think I read it in a Barnes and Noble one day. Like I literally picked it up and was just flicking through it, and before I knew it, I was done. It's essentially like a lecture or a series of lectures Mamet used to give film students when he was like, I don't know, like guest professoring someplace or whatever. I don't personally fully subscribe to his specific like ideas about movies, but I feel like they're very good to have in your mind. I feel like you can learn a lot from the way he sees how directing a movie should go. And it teaches you a lot of very basic visual building block things and how to focus on not thinking too much about stuff that doesn't matter. Like just like, he was like a screenplay should just be, when you're writing, you should write images that can be filmed. You shouldn't be writing like POV, this person, he has this kind of hair and he looks like this and he thinks like this. And like, it should just be, what can you film? What pictures can you put in sequence to tell a story and stuff? And he sort of makes making movies sound like the opposite of fun. He makes it sound like math, actually, which I've never really jived with, but some of the ideas in there are pretty good. So those are the books I suggest to people. They're all very good. What else? From my friend Fatura. Is there a needle drop song that you are not immune to, no matter how lazy it's the usage? Okay. Yeah. There's two, kind of. One of them is not even, I can't even think of any very good usages of it, but whenever I hear it, I get very excited. And that is Be My Baby by the Ronettes, or any cover of Be My Baby by the Ronettes. I just love that fucking song. Anytime I hear it in a movie, whatever the context, I'm just like, all right, cool. Movie is okay in my book, even if it's bad. And then, this is a really shitty one. This is like a really overused one. But anytime they use Creedence Clearwater Revival's Fortunate Son in a war movie, especially if it's Vietnam, like, it is the fucking laziest, most obvious way to tell people what time period you're in, but it slaps every time. It fucking works. I can't fault it. I cannot fault it. I can't think of a time where it's bad. I'm just like, well, that's what you do. That's what else you're gonna fucking do. At AABB9053 asks, what are some other underappreciated things that have jarred you, a la Bradley Cooper knows, that I can look up? I gotta be honest, I don't think anything in recent memory has shocked me as much as seeing the Bradley Cooper prosthetic nose for the Leonard Bernstein biopic Maestro. I don't think anything recently has gotten me exactly in that way. I think there are other questionable like choices and stuff, like weird haircuts in movies or weird costumes or whatever. One that comes to mind immediately is like how fucking weird Kevin Spacey looked in All the Money in the World before he got canceled and replaced by a real actor. Stuff like that. Anytime an actor does weird face shit and prosthetic shit, I'm always like, what? Oh, you know what? I got one. Nicole Kidman in the movie Destroyer. Karen Kusama made this movie a few years ago that like essentially could have been like a season of True Detective, but they squished it into a 2-hour movie. And Nicole Kidman's really good in it, but they make her look, I don't want to say they make her look ugly, but they make her look rough in a way that feels distracting. Like they gave her like a fucking short fucked up haircut, and like she just looks like somebody tried to erase her face and then didn't blow away the eraser marks, so they're all just kind of around her face. And it's so distracting. Like, it's a very good performance. It's actually a pretty good movie. I remember very much liking it when I saw it, but every few minutes I'd just be like, why the fuck did they do this? Like, you either could have cast someone who looks and feels and has a different presence than Nicole Kidman, or you could have just cast Nicole Kidman, like, and just not put as much makeup on her or something. But like, it's so weird. Like, if you look it up, look, just like, I think the poster too is just like a close up of her face. It's not, the nose, but it's up there. Okay, a question from the homie Justin, who I've been referencing like 6 times in this episode. I love Justin. Love it, Justin. Question for next week. Your thoughts on the new Blade movie and its struggles, and how you'd plot the movie if it were up to you. Seriously disappointed that they can't get this right. Love you, bro. Love you too. Yeah. I've talked elsewhere, and by elsewhere I mean in every group chat that I'm in every conversation someone brings Blade up in, that there is no greater evidence of the failure of the MCU brand, that as they've expanded and adapted all of these diverse, random B-list, C-list, there's a Moon Knight show with Oscar Isaac in it. There's all of these different things, right? Like they've at one point there was going to be like a freeform show with like Squirrel Girl. Like, they've made it so that any Marvel character could theoretically be a big box office success, right? And yet, the character that basically saved Marvel as a brand in the 90s, Blade, the Stephen Norrington film, it's like the 25th anniversary, I think, with Wesley Snipes, the God. I don't fucking get it. The only thing I can think is like, they're overthinking it, right? Like, there's everything that I've heard from like the rumors online and stuff, and like I know some people who like may or may not have been working on the production, makes it sound like they're just taking a very simple thing. Blade is a vampire. He has all of their strengths, none of their weaknesses. He hates them. He hunts them. He has to shoot up serum like heroin so he doesn't drink people's blood. Also, he has a sword and he kicks ass. He's really fucking cool. That's not hard. That's not a fucking complicated concept. The first Blade movie, so good. Blade 2, also really good. Blade Trinity, not very good, but probably better than whatever the MCU is about to come up with. The fact that they're trying to make it like a weird, like, post HBO Watchmen race thing and stuff. The fact they're trying to make it a period piece. Literally, if I had to make a Blade movie for the MCU, it would be like 94 minutes long. It would just be like The Raid, but with Blade. It would just be him killing vampires for like an hour and a half. I don't even like, when I've been thinking about this, I don't even think about like a specific, like, oh, here's my idea and here's the villain and here's the character arc and stuff. I don't think you need anything that deep. It's a very simple thing. Like, just get somebody fucking cool, right? Just a cool black guy who can do martial arts and stuff. Like, if you were doing like a Fallen Sons thing where it was Blade as part of an ensemble and a bunch of people, I could see just getting Michael Jai White to do it. Like, if he had to be Blade on a team or Blade with people, I think that would be really cool. Maybe someone would say he's too old, but I mean, I don't think so. And he's just a badass and he's like really cool. And so I that would be interesting to me. Him and like sort of the Expendables, but with Marvel's like horror characters like Werewolf by Night and all that stuff and Moon Knight or whatever. Like, that's how I would go with that version of the character. But if you just wanted to do Blade, like a Blade movie with Blade solo stuff, I don't even think Mahershala Ali is bad for it. But I never thought he was like good for it, because it's just like, I don't trust anyone who thought making Green Book was a good idea. I don't care how good he is in True Detective Season 3 or how good he was in Moonlight or everything else. It's just like, that made me think about that guy differently, you know? And I don't know that I would cast him, honestly. I feel like I would just try to get someone who's like a stunt performer or something who can kind of act. Just someone with some presence. You know what I mean? This is going to sound a little bit crazy, but like Montez Ford, you know, of the Street Profits, a WWE star, has such a cool look and a presence and physicality and stuff. I don't know if he could do martial arts and shit like that. And it kind of remains to be seen whether or not he could like act, but like, just get a guy who looks cool. Just get a guy who looks cool and has presence, and you dress him cool. You give him cool clothes and stuff. Maybe you get some like Cardi songs on the soundtrack, and then you have him kill like 4,000 vampires. You just make it like a John Wick thing. Make the criminal underworld from John Wick, like all the assassin stuff, make that the way vampires operate. Boom, done. This is not hard. I don't know if Chad Stahelski is free. Have him direct it. As far as a writer, I don't know. Get someone like really fucking big. Get like Brian Helgeland or something. You know what I mean? Like it, or I'm trying to think of another like just like meaty guy screenwriter. Get William Monahan to write it. Someone who's not going to overthink this shit. Just someone who's going to be like, let's fuck shit up. You know, you got to get like a just a dude in there, or like a really cool lady, I guess. I don't know, but it can't be what they're making it. It feels like it's never even happened at this point. Like, I don't think that movie's going to get made ever. Strike be damned. Good question though. Thanks, bro. Final question from my friend Mary June, who I just want to say is one of the most gifted writers I've ever met in my entire life. She's such a good storyteller. She has such attention to detail, so much heart, and she really has a better work ethic than like any other writer I know. Like, she's amazing. Sorry, I just wanted to give MJ her flowers. Speaking of vampire boat movie and someone else here talking about the Blade reboot, I have a question for you. Do you have a ranking of fave Dracula portrayals or movie vampires in general? I think I've talked about this elsewhere, and I'm not sure if elsewhere on the Armchair Auteur brand I've addressed this, but I do love vampires. I think Dracula is a cool character, but I don't really have, like, I think Bram Stoker's Dracula is really tight, but I'm much more of an Anne Rice guy. So my favorite vampires in general are Tom Cruise's Lestat and Brad Pitt's Louis from 1994, 5, Neil Jordan's Interview with the Vampire. I've not watched the AMC show. I should at some point, but Tom Cruise's Lestat, the Lion Court, is like one of my favorite movie characters ever. And I don't understand people that don't get it. I don't understand people that don't like Interview with the Vampire. When I was in high school and I read all the Anne Rice stuff, I was a huge Anne Rice nerd. I used to write really cringy, really horny vampire fan fiction stuff. There's a girl I had a crush on in my geometry class, and I wrote a very weirdly like suggestive vampire story, like inspired by her. I let her read it, and it was like maybe the cringiest, worst thing I've ever done in my entire fucking life. But yeah, I really liked vampire shit when I was a teenager. I don't know why, and I still do. If I see something with vampires in it, I'm gonna watch it straight up. But no. My favorite Dracula actually is Eddie Murphy in a vampire, the Vampire in Brooklyn, which he's not really playing Dracula, but he basically is. Really, really great stuff. That movie's severely underrated. I don't care what anybody says. And then yeah, Tom Cruise's Lestat. It's such a good movie. Interview with the Vampire is like a really good movie. It changes so many things from the book, but like, so grow up. Yeah, I've been meaning to try to figure out how I can make a video about that movie for a while, but I don't know what to do about it other than just like, it was turning like a weird thirst-a-thon about Tom Cruise in that movie, but he's so good in it. If you haven't watched that movie in a while, please revisit it and then tell me he's not the GOAT. Thanks, MJ. So that does it for this episode. We didn't go too long. We haven't broken the record yet, but thank you guys for listening. And if you're watching this on YouTube, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications when I put out new videos. Hopefully we'll have a new video next week before the next episode of the pod. We might not, but I'm hoping we will. We'll see what happens. I have a weird week ahead of me. And then if you are listening to the audio version and you're not watching this on YouTube, please, share with your friends. Try to give me a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on, Apple Music, Spotify, or whatever the hell. And if you guys have questions for the next week's episode, as always, you can put them in the comments of this video. You can email me at armchairauteur@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Twitter, the IG DMs, wherever the question comes to me, I will find a way to put it on here. So thank you guys again for everything. Thank you for supporting the show and helping it grow and stuff. I really love you guys. So I'll see you later. I hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, being good to yourselves and each other. Bye.